walk away. So here's a notional breakdown of how good it is to keep discoverable mode off. In discoverable mode, it takes less than 10.24 seconds. Note, I didn't make that up. That is the actual specified time because of very technical reasons how the inquiry scan and the frequency hopping happens in Bluetooth. You have to give it at least 10.24 seconds to find discoverable devices. The cost, as we saw, was free. I have a laptop, already has Bluetooth integrated, download a piece of software, boom, I find it. Brute force with MAC guessing. Let's assume one prefix. I know the first 6 hex digits of the thing that I'm trying to attack, so I only have to guess the second 6, 1.6 million addresses. At 10.24 seconds, that's a long time, okay? That's 6 years. If you can get a person to stand still for 6 years while you try to attack their device, good job. Good job. You are the best social engineer ever. If we do something like @stakes Red Fang, where they serialized 8 devices, up to X, but where realistically X is 8. You put 8 radios together on this thing, and you say, hey, I'm going to segregate that 1.6 million search string into 200,000 addresses. I'm still talking nearly a year. Even if I'm good, and I have a reasonable idea, let's say I'm only going to dole out 20,000 addresses per radio because I've got a database and I've profiled all these vendors' things. We're still talking 24 days, 2-3 weeks. Give me a break. Come on. I mean, as much as this is academically interesting to talk about brute force discovery and all the tools have it in there because it's cute and fun, it's not realistic. Anyone found a device by brute force using any of these tools? How many people have run a Bluetooth war driving tool, first of all? Let's start there. Number of people. How many people tried the brute force thing? A couple. Wow, congratulations. Didn't find anything, did you? No, right. Nothing. You're not going to. I mean, fact of the matter is, it's cute and it's neat. It's useless. No offense to, I did not mean that in an offensive way, especially the @stake guys, because, brother, they were pushing the envelope on this really early on. Everyone's running down a particular path looking for something. It's just, this path wasn't the way to go. Using a protocol analyzer, and if you have a known MAC address of the master, you can find a non-discoverable Bluetooth device in about 5 seconds, costs $10,000. If you know nothing about it, it gets complicated, because you can do crazy things like hook up a spectrum analyzer, pull all the RF out, suck it out, push down all the waveforms onto a hard drive, run Fourier transforms on them, and look for ones and zeros, and then recompose the protocol yourself, and then try to find the MAC address. That sound was the money being sucked out of my wallet while I paid for that activity. Okay, that is not cheap. What needs to happen with discovery is people are working on this right now, taking a software-defined radio, writing a Bluetooth implementation that runs on top of something like New Radio that's wideband, allows us to sniff, and allows us to have better visibility into what's going on. Until that happens, this chart ain't going to change much. Okay, the 10K may come down to 5K or something, but for all intents and purposes, you're not going to go buy a spectrum analyzer for $300. Not a good one. Unless, who's the guy? Who's who's the guy at DEF CON that always sells all the crazy gear? Uncle Ira. Yeah, Uncle Ira. Uncle Ira would come to DEF CON and sell like the craziest stuff, man. Protocol analyzers and RF jammers and things that must have been illegal in 100 countries, and great stuff, man. And Uncle Ira, yeah, good things. Link level attacks. Here's this paper where basically they fake their Bluetooth address. Again, congrats to the guy who was all twos because he figured out how to fake your Bluetooth address. And they tried to make basically a secured connection to a device that already had a secure connection to that MAC address. So I've got 2 devices that have an existing trust relationship. I spoof a MAC address from the 3rd device and try to make a connection. After 3 or 4 times of doing it, the device you're trying to connect to says, oh, hey, you must have forgotten your key. And then some devices, the next thing they say is, do you want to repair? I got it going on, and it'll just promiscuously try to repair. And so at that point, you can just go ahead and attempt to repair. If the device has a default PIN, or the person uses something dumb like 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, you can get yourself a paired connection. Now you have basically a secure connection to a device that you don't control, or you don't own, and you can go try to own. Kind of neat trick. This is actually under the guise of what they were doing was the main point of the paper is they were doing PIN attacks where they would sniff the PIN transactions and then brute force guess the PIN. Okay, just some quick math. It's what, 2006? We have 4 gigahertz computers these days. The pins that we're using are 4 digits long, okay? 4 gigahertz of processing power versus a 10,000 key search space. These guys in their paper optimized what they did from I think it was like 5 milliseconds to 2 milliseconds. So that was, it was like, wow. I guess as the key space gets bigger, if you do use a bigger pin and your devices support it, their technique obviously has some gains, but for the vast majority of the population that uses 4-digit pins, it wasn't that big of a deal. I think what was way more interesting about this paper was this attack. Clear text data, again, people do send clear text data. This is a link level attack. If you don't encrypt stuff, you can smell it and you can get it. Location tracking. So it's RF. Not shocking, you can do this, you can track people. 2 years ago, we tracked people all over BlackHat. It was kind of fun. We had sensors set up on people's laptops, and we, basically, we had probably 60 discoverable devices that year. 60 out of a population of probably 4,000 people. I assure you there were more than 60 devices, Bluetooth-enabled devices there. I would guess there are probably 600 Bluetooth-enabled devices there. So, again, turn discoverable mode off. I can't say that enough. If you haven't done it yet, if you're idly listening to me and you're getting bored because you're thinking this guy's on slide 20 and he hasn't said anything interesting, please just take your phone and turn discoverable mode off. Let's just reiterate this, like, hallelujah. For some, tracking is a plus. If you go to this zoo in the Netherlands, I think it is, or somewhere up in the cold regions. They use blue tags to track kids. Legoland has the same thing, where basically you put this tracking dart in your kid's butt, and then you can use your cell phone via SMS and say, "Where's Johnny?" And Johnny, runs, "Oh!" His butt lights up, and then they tell him where Johnny is. So, I mean, it's a long-range RFID, right? It was cheap. So this is maybe one area where Bluetooth wasn't really intended to go into tracking, but it's probably more robust and's got more security than RFID does, so people are using it for that. So finally, on the attack front, human interface issues, there's not, as I said, there's not a lot of control and configuration options on some devices. My MacBook here has a few, like, here I can do file transfers, file exchange, PDA sync, serial port, and they're all off. I can turn them on. I have fine-grained control. I'll be honest, I didn't even look at a Windows box to see if you could do this. Last time I looked at a Windows box with Bluetooth was about 6 months ago, and you couldn't. There may be some fine-grained stuff, but laptops are only one type of thing. My phone is another, and it'd be great to be able to control what I can do. Rogue devices. A name is not an authentication credential. Don't trust a device just because it's a friendly name of something you know. If you're going to pair to a device and it's next to you, it's your BlackBerry, 4720, or I don't know BlackBerries. It's a BlackBerry. I was doing work in a BlackBerry lab one day, and I tried to pair with a BlackBerry, and 17 BlackBerries responded all with the same name. Like, hey, how do you find the MAC address of that thing? We all kind of looked at it, oh God, scrolling through config menus and stuff. It wasn't easy. It wasn't actually easy to figure out what the MAC address of the BlackBerry was to pair to it, let alone to figure out, I mean, BlackBerry is a pretty robust device. Take a simple little cell phone and try to find the MAC address of that thing. David, are you owning my phone? Okay, good. Yeah. What other ways are there though? As a consumer, if I'm trying to pair or I'm trying to connect to a device, if it's not for that simple name, I have to do it by MAC address. Well, MAC address isn't infallible either. What other mechanisms are there? There aren't any, right? There's nothing exposed to me as a user. There's no tools, there's no cryptographic algorithms. That initial connection is very dangerous. You don't know who you're talking to. Until you have the keys established, until it's paired, you have no earthly clue what the device on the other end is. So the ultimate thing is, go get Gene Hackman's Faraday cage before it blew up out of Enemy of the State, crawl inside of it, pair your devices, and then come out and blow it up in some big explosion. It'll be great. Social engineering, change your name of your phone to pin 1234. Send it to someone as a pairing request. So they'll say, pin 1234 wants to pair with you. Do you want to pair? A lot of people who aren't security conscious might hit yes. And then they'll say, pin, oh, pin's 1234. 1234, boop, there, you got a paired connection. So, sir.
Kevin at Escape Camp was something recently where he said his Bluetooth device needs to carriage turn, carriage turn, carriage turn. Do you want free porn? Carriage turn, carriage turn, carriage turn. And do you want to pair with, and then the device name just scroll right up the screen on all the Motorola devices.
Nice.
Blue line.
Nice. So the idea here is you put a lot of carriage returns after your device name. You make your device name a question, like, do you want free porn? People hit yes. And you can go pair with the thing. You do malicious stuff that way. When I was overseas, there were people looking for discoverable devices in like billboards and trying to send me files. Do you want Virgin Atlantic.mp4? Like, no, just because I happen to be next to a Virgin Atlantic sign that's sending me this, I don't know who this is. Like, if I'm in the subway and I'm bored, I'm like waiting for, you know, a subway, a tube in London, like I'm just gonna fire up my laptop and send malicious MP4s to people full of porn or whatever, standing next to the Virgin Atlantic sign. Like, they're gonna sue Virgin Atlantic over this. Wow, my laptop is very upset. There we go. Bad implementation, we talked about this a fair bit. Exposing functionality prior to authentication. This is the basis for BlueSnarf. And then we've got packet of deaths. Yes, BlueSmack is a tool, again, from Trifinite, sends a big L2 ping packet over the device to try to kill it. Shocker. You know, there's protocol problems. You can fuzz Bluetooth protocols and have a lot of success. Surprise, I know it's a shock. So let's talk about some defense techniques. I think I've got 15 minutes to go, so we need to figure out how to defend Bluetooth. Thankfully, since I hadn't figured it out yet, I spent all the time on attack during this conversation. Enterprise tools are largely geared toward the infrastructure. You know, this is, as an enterprise, is what we were concerned about, protecting the infrastructure. This is why Wi-Fi clients got screwed for so long, is because we were so worried about keeping the infrastructure secure. We forgot, oh, there's these things connecting to them called clients, so we need to worry about that. In Bluetooth, it's even worse, because most of these devices aren't corporately controlled. Again, what's the risk of this device to your enterprise? Something you need to figure out for yourself. Bluetooth is more prevalent. Deployment scenarios are far more varied. Users need to find a way to protect themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't educate users, but you got to make it easy for them to do it if they want. And today, even if they want to protect themselves, they can't. So it turns out that security products need to be usable. I think I've probably mentioned this enough times. Go read yourself Why Johnny Can Encrypt. It's a paper from a few years ago explaining why PGP at the time was really useless, not because of the crypto, but because nobody could use it. In complicated emerging technologies, only users can recognize attacks. It turns out that with rogue access point detection, a lot of it's heuristic decision making. You know, because there's not a lot of mechanisms within the core protocol to make the decision as to, is this access point okay or not, until you actually try to authenticate with it. And unless you're using the best authentication possible, you still may not know the answer to that. So the users kind of have to get involved and say, is this really a bad situation? Like the MAC address of the access point just changed, is that okay? I just had a huge spike in signal strength, is that okay? And the users want to be able to tune that. Smart users. Dumb users just want to make the decision and then put up with the help desk calls. So in Bluetooth, it's the same thing. You know, right now we're not at a state where we can deterministically say, this is all the bad stuff that can happen and this is all the good stuff and here's the thick line in between them. You know, there's going to be gray areas in between. For the product vendors in the room, this is an opportunity for you. Products rushed to market don't have the best security, blah, blah, blah. And so to the point on the last bullet point, it's not rocket science, though, to make these decisions. The capability, as I said, is not available to the user, and as we found out, it's not available to the developer. You know, Apple, for the longest time, their Bluetooth API consisted of call the wizard. If you wanted to find a Bluetooth device on a you know, OS 10, you basically called the OS 10 find device wizard, the thing that popped up on that other thing when I clicked browse, and then you waited for it to return you the information on the device. You couldn't intermediate, you couldn't do anything else, you just called this wizard, you waited for the wizard to do its thing, and then pop, out came the device. Well, if you're trying to write Bluetooth security capabilities, that's not really all that useful to you, because you didn't get a chance to see the entire environment that you were in. Defense mechanism, user notification authorization. Users should be notified when all connections try to happen. Again, this is not exposed as a developer thing. We're going to have to hook things via inter-process communication in the drivers in order to catch when somebody does a discovery scan. You know, there's not some little alert or trap I can get out of it natively. I have to go off and